went to a conference that my brother had found online, and he was like, oh, there's a conference at the local RSL. Some guy's going to come in and talk about real estate. And the concept was 10 properties in 10 years. And I was like, that's fantastic, because if I start at 20, by the time I'm 30, I'm rich and I get to retire. So that's probably the beginnings of like where I started understanding maybe I need to get into assets and about property.
Hey, it's Julian. We're back for another episode of Lost and Founders. Today I'm here with a very special guest and author and business owner and entrepreneur. And introduce yourself.
My name's Ravi, guys, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we've caught up before, and obviously I sat on your podcast, and it was very inspiring to see what you were building over there. You could definitely see that we had a lot of similarities in terms of the things that we valued most. Taking care of our team, building something that is essentially going to last beyond our own personal sort of legacy. And I think what you're doing is amazing. You're obviously creating an environment where people are pushing and are helping so many people out and sort of getting to the property market and those kinds of things. But let's kind of rewind and tell us a story about from basically when you all roads that led to you starting Search Property, whether it was something that happened when you were a kid that inspired you or whatever it might be.
Well, it depends how far back we go, but
all the way back.
I grew up in Campsie, so near sort of Belmore, Bankstown area, and my parents, they lived in a house with all of their siblings. So just like many migrants, they come into the country and they're like, cool, 1 bedroom means a whole family goes in there. Yeah. So there's like 3 or 4 families living in the one place. And, we were fortunate that we grew up there. As the families got bigger, one by one, they sort of started moving out of that house and they ended up buying their own places. But then from there, we, were able to go into our own dream house, which is the family house. Parents worked really hard, but to get to that, they had to invest in property. And the way that Dad used to do it was he would go and invest regionally because it wouldn't make sense to do it in Sydney. It was just way too expensive. And so that's probably what me and my brother picked up early on. Was he was working really hard, had the 1 or 2 jobs. At times he had 3 jobs, and he would use all that money to then go and invest into this property. And I remember back then he went and said, oh, we've bought a property, it's in Liverpool. And back then I don't think the M5 was set up, so you'd travel on Canterbury Road. And you're like, bro, how far is this house and whatnot? So that was like the only Sydney property he had. And then we saw over time how his situation changed, where he was working a lot less, but he was sort of comfortable with, spending time with us and whatnot. And I think that had a big influence in how we were brought up, but also the importance of starting early, not being in a position where they weren't able to see us as kids. Both parents were working from basically day dot, and we just didn't want that, or at least I didn't want that. So that sort of sparked the initial interest in getting into property. But again, we were way too young to even understand how real estate worked. So we went through schooling, got into uni because, that's what you do. And then as I was at uni, I started realizing that, okay, I can make a lot of income, but that's going to mean nothing by the time I'm 30 unless I buy assets. Yeah. And that was like the big trigger to go, okay, I need to start learning about how to do this, because no one in my circle is going to teach me. My teachers aren't going to teach me. You go to uni, you're just partying and there's nothing going to be there. So we went to a conference that my brother had found online, and he was like, oh, there's a conference at the local RSL. Some guy's going to come in and talk about real estate. And the concept was 10 properties in 10 years. And I was like, that's fantastic, because if I start at 20, by the time I'm 30, I'm rich and I get to retire. So that's probably the beginnings of like where I started understanding maybe I need to get into assets and about property.
So I want you mentioned something like, because what you were exposed to is very, very important, right? I didn't necessarily have that. So my mum owned her property. She bought it from her unfortunately deceased parents, as my parents were going through a divorce that was happened all around the same time. And the thought of having investment properties, just like, it just wasn't even a goal. That like just owning a house was a goal. Like, it's like, it just, when you grow up with very little, the thought of having 5, 10, 15 properties is just like, it doesn't even seem realistic. Mm-hmm. But even I had a good job. I started really early. I didn't go out and party. I was a a very switched on, very hardworking 18-plus-year-old. And I've always been called an old man on a young person's shoulders, and that's still the case. But I didn't drink, I didn't party, I didn't do anything. I was just working really hard, working nearly every single weekend between the age of 18 and 23, so that I could buy my home. And I was with my current wife, and still am obviously still married. We're going on 15 years together this year, and in December 2025, we'll be married for 10 years. So. Wow. I had a very different sort of early 20s than most people. I got married at 23, kids at 25. But the first property I bought, I was still 22, which is fairly still early. Young, and I bought a freestanding house that is still my home to today. And the thing is, nobody told me that was the wrong way to do it. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I bought at the very top in 2015, the very top of that market cycle. And it probably took 5 years for me to even have equity in that property. I bought it fully leveraged. I think my LVR was like 97%. It was like 95% plus LMI. Like I've fully leveraged that property. So I didn't get to a point where I had 80% LVR for like 5 years. And that's not an exaggeration, maybe longer. And so, if I had been smart and if I had somebody, showing me the way, what I would have done is bought a whole bunch of investment properties that had experienced capital growth, so that and had a good yield, so that eventually I can buy the place I want to call home, but I can buy it by leveraging all the other equity in the other properties, right? And I just didn't know that, and so it's put me back so far in my property investment journey. And then obviously when you have a fintech business that's bootstrapped like mine, you don't exactly have a lot of free cash to go and invest in property. The investment is the business in some things. But I feel like the quicker people start learning about this, and some people might go, I'm like 18, why do I need to, or I'm 20, why do I need to learn this stuff? It's so far away before I can buy property. They're so wrong. They couldn't be further from the truth. It couldn't be further from the truth. The quicker you can get and speak to professionals that know this space well, the quicker you can get into the market, the more you're setting yourself up for the future. And we want to kind of unpack that, because you obviously had that very unique upbringing. Your father was well ahead of his time in terms of investing in regional areas, and Liverpool even. It's not exactly a regional area, but at the time it probably felt like that. Depending on how long ago we're talking. But like Liverpool, even further, like Campbelltown, Oran Park, like all these areas, people that got in early, some of them had 200% growth in the property value. It's insane. Like. And there are sort of there are areas that people can buy in, and suburbs and regional areas or interstate that people can buy in and get into the market. It doesn't have to be Sydney. You can either rent where you want to live or where, all those things. There's all these different strategies that people can run. But how did you end up with Search Property? What was bridge me the gap between those life lessons that you learned, the real estate conference, the real estate event, and Search Property?
Well, going back to that conference, 10 properties, 10 years, and I sat there and they were like, yeah, so you just buy, 5 properties from 20 to 25, so one every year, and then from 25 to 30, you buy another 5. But by the time you get to 30, the first 5 should roughly have like doubled in value, which means you could now sell those and then own 5 properties outright that you bought just recently from 25 to 30, and you've retired. And so that's sort of the mentality I had, which was only possible if you had gone out there and bought cheaper or more affordable properties, and you weren't going to find that in Sydney. So for me, my brother and I were like, okay, we need to start as soon as possible. So when it comes to work ethic, this is probably where we can relate a lot is, despite sort of understanding I need assets and whatnot, without an income, without having savings, you're not going to get anywhere. So I think it was the day after my Year 12 formal, I was straight in work, and I was retail work. And while everyone took off the 3 months in between high school and uni, I just went straight into work, and I was like, look, I know what the vision is. I need to buy assets, and I'm going to get there by just working really hard. And I'll go to uni because I need a good job as well. And at that time, it was so much importance on it. So we're talking, I graduated 2010, so 2011, go to uni. And while I was at uni, I realized that everyone wants to just muck around for the next couple of years. These are the easy days. And, you had an excuse that if you didn't have a job, you're like, I'm full-time uni.
Yeah, yeah.
Most people were sitting at home as well, like they were living at home, so there was no real expenses there. And during that time, I was like, well, this is the chance to double down. Because if everyone else around me is like mucking around and doing this, yeah, I partied a little bit and traveled as well. But I was like, this is the time you double down. So I was doing full-time uni and I was working full-time in retail. And I was just making as much money as possible. And the whole idea was I need to get a really good job straight out of uni. So I applied for a bunch of graduate programs and I got into like Mars Chocolate. So I've taken this route.
I'm surprised you're not 200 kilos.
Oh, bro, I put a lot of weight during that time.
That would literally be the end of me. I would have diabetes. if I took that job, I would have diabetes. 100%.
You know what's worse is with the Mars Chocolate job, you know, you go in for your induction into the office and they go, oh, you know, we've got a trolley out the back. And I was like, what's the trolley for? They said, oh, we got to get you to love the product. And I was like, man, I already love the product. That's why I'm here. And they just give you boxes and boxes of chocolate. And I brought them home. And for like every Easter, every time people came over, it was like, hey, have some chocolate. And they were just like, bro, why do you have so much? And it was just because that's part of their onboarding is they just want everyone to love the product. So I did put on a bit of weight.
I might stop doing loan options and go and work for mine.
I always thought that if I was ever to retire or just, you know, I needed something to do, I'd go back to that job because it was so cruisy, but also you get a bunch of chocolate. And so while I was there, I was like, okay, I'm making good income now. I want to enjoy life and whatnot. But then I had this big moment with my manager at the time. She was like, you know, the golden child who went through the grad program, made her way up the ranks, and she did really well. So everyone knew that, you know, she's the right mentor for anyone that wants to like make it through the business. And so she was 30 at the time, I was 20, and she goes, hey, you know, if you do everything well and I can guide you through this process, in 10 years' time, you'll be where I am. And I was like, okay. I think she thought it was going to inspire me, and it made me really scared because I'm like, you're about to break up with your partner because you focus on work too much. I know where you live and it's not, you know, a flashy place. And if you're telling me that's where I'm going to be in 10 years, I need another route.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was like the moment that I go, okay, I need to figure something out. I'm getting scared. And that's at 20. So I know at that time when I was talking to my friends, they weren't talking about property. They weren't talking about taxes. They were talking about, hey, bro, like I'm going out to like Argyle this week. I'm going to the Cross and this and that. And there was a place for that as well. But at 21, I bought my first property, and it was an investment property, 190K, up in like north New South Wales. And I remember going and chatting to my mates and said, hey, I bought a property. And I thought they were going to be ecstatic. They're like, oh, how'd you do it? Blah, blah, blah. And they were just like, that's the dumbest idea. At 21, you got like a mortgage. Why didn't you buy in Sydney? You could have got a, you know, first time owner grants. That sounds silly. And it was at that point we started taking different routes. And I just knew that I've probably outgrown this cohort of
and that happens, man. Like everything you just described there. I graduated in 2010 as well. I knew I wasn't going to uni, and I knew I wasn't going to uni pretty much all my life. So I had my first choice career was actually to be a police officer, and that's really what I wanted to do. You didn't need to go to uni. You could go to this
you'd go to an academy or something.
Yeah, right? Charleston. It's kind of it's kind of university, but it's a course that you would do and whatever. But you didn't need to have an ATAR, and so I did non-elective subjects. That would mean I didn't qualify for an ATAR. I didn't go to a great school. It was a low-ranking school. I had no unrealistic expectations of what my ATAR was going to be. I literally did not study in school. I didn't care for it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And then I got talked out of the police officer thing, specifically because a lot of people around me at the time who were cops, their marriages were falling apart. Lots of things were going wrong for them, and it could have just been a coincidence, but that was enough to be talked out of it. And so my second choice career was IT, and similar thing. I had mates. I left. I was working during school, but when I left school, I went full-time work, full-time study, and I was studying web and app development. And my mates were like clubbing every weekend. Like I went clubbing on my 18th birthday. I think the next time I went clubbing was on my sister's 18th birthday and then my little brother's 18th birthday. I think I've been to clubs maybe 4 or 5 times in my entire life.
Wow.
So like I had no interest. I don't drink. I've never even tried any drugs. I don't do any of that stuff. It's always been for me, like, how do I go from the upbringing I had where single mom, 5 kids, how do I take my family and like propel them as far forward as I can? And how do I put my kids like, how do I put them a step ahead of what I had? And it's not about giving them material things, but just allowing, I didn't have the choice to go to uni. That's the honest thing. I had to work. I didn't have that choice. So I knew I wasn't going to go to uni because like, I was like, well, I need to work. I know that. There's no point going and doing, and so, so for me, it's like, I want to just give my kids choice, and so, the goals that I've set for myself are purely around helping my family and helping them. And everyone, like, thank God now is like doing really, really well. And I'm very proud of my little brother, my little sisters, and my older brothers. They're all doing great in their own right. But my friends were out and like, why don't you come out? Why don't you do this? And they're doing like all the stuff that, 18 to 21 year olds clubbing and trying different things. And like, it wasn't appealing to me at all. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to like work as hard as I can, save enough money so I can marry my now wife, which I did, pay for the wedding, pay for a ring, pay for a wedding, pay for our home. And once I did all of those things, it never felt like I was done, but I felt like, I beat that part of my life. Like, look around at age of 23, I was married, lived in my own home. Yes, I had a mortgage, and yes, it was a pretty fucking big mortgage, but I earned great money. I had a great career. I was a general manager of a finance brokering business by that point. And my mates were still like either not working at all or just finishing uni and like they literally like had no direction in their life. They had like, and I was like, yeah, it was just, we'd grown so far apart. We didn't have anything in common anymore. Like the last thing we had in common was playing sport in school together, and it's like, it's not having a go at them, but I just knew that wasn't the life I wanted to live. Like imagine me now, I'm 32. I can't imagine just getting started in my career now. Like there's so much that I've already done, already achieved. I'm 14 years in this industry. Like I'm 32 and I'm 14 years in this industry. It's pretty crazy. And so I think I gave myself probably the biggest head start I could have imagined. And I think it sounds like you did exactly the same thing. You chose maybe the path that was less traveled for a 22-year-old, 21-year-old getting a property. And, some people are going like, why? But it's clearly paid dividends now. You've not sure how much you're comfortable sharing, but clearly that's not the last property you bought either, right? It's like,
yeah, correct. I mean, on that point, you were saying that, you've taken the path less traveled. You sort of go, and I say this all the time to anyone that talks, reaches out to the buyer's agency. It's like, if you want financial freedom, you're literally talking about a life that like 0.01% of people will ever get. Yeah. And if you think you're going to achieve that by doing what average people do, it's not going to happen, because if everyone could walk around with six-pack abs, they would. But that's why it's so hard to achieve. Yeah. It's the same way like with retiring, like on your own terms, let alone trying to retire early. Like that shit is spoken about so lightly online, but it's actually so difficult to do. You see your parents and they're still working and they're in their 50s and 60s. So to go down that path, which everyone else follows, you sort of figure it out at like 30. We're the same age, so I'm 32. And you figure out at 30 who took their 20s seriously. Now, that's not saying like you didn't party at all, and you're probably the more extreme case where you're in trouble.
And don't get me wrong. Like when people go, I never pushed my lifestyle or my choices on anybody else. I never criticized my friends for, going out I was just like, nah, man, not for me. Like it's fine. And I don't judge people based on the choices they made. It just seemed so obvious to me. Like go out and get blackout drunk every weekend, or like try and get ahead in life. And it seemed like the 20s was the cheat code. Like I seemed like I don't think of myself as a particularly smart person, but it seemed so obvious to me. This next 10 years of my life, if I can set myself up and look, I've had lots of setbacks. I thought where I am now, I would have been, 5 years ago, because like you have to restart sometimes, you go all in on a business, and maybe you're a small shareholder, or maybe you're not a shareholder at all, but you're a senior person and you get promised shares, or like you go all in and you bleed for that company, and then things don't work out the way you wanted to, and so you have to start again, and then sometimes you have to start again, and so that's really what Loan Options is. Loan Options is a couple of hard resets on my career, and so I would have thought that I would be further along by now, but at the end of the day, if you told me when I was 18, if you told me when I was 15 and like some bad stuff was going down in my life. If you told me when I was 15 that by the time you're 32, you'll have like all of these things, and I think, not to say that I've still got so much more work to do, but if you told me I would be where I probably would find it so hard to believe. I thought a great salary and a goal of mine was to earn $75,000 a year. Like I literally, that seemed like if I can get there, like I'm going to live such a good quality life compared to what I currently do, and it's like, it's crazy that's where the goals were. That was like the most immediate goal that I was trying to hit. Like I need to find a job that I can earn up to 70. And that's why IT, I was looking at it like, level 2, level 3 help desk support. Like, and then web, like apps were quite new, like the iPhone when I was in year 12 was a couple of years old or something. Yeah. It was, that was 2010, and what did it come out in 2007 or something? But in Australia, it was like 2008, 2009 before iPhones were like quite popular. Mm-hmm. So apps were like, the next thing. But yeah, it's so important that people see, the different pathways, because you can go and have, you can go travel the whole world and there's nothing wrong with that, because, later in my life, I want to travel. So it's like just doing it in a slightly different order. But I think it's good to see those different variations. The one thing you shouldn't do is waste time, and because I think it's getting harder and harder to get into the property market because property prices and supply and demand, and there are some good initiatives now. When I bought my property, there wasn't a first home buyers grant, there wasn't any help at all actually. There wasn't guarantor loans, and these are all newer things that enable people to get into the market much better and much easier. But really, it would have been easier if I had professional advice or guidance, or if I picked up, now with obviously you've written a book, and that's amazing, man. I'm so happy for you. We're going to talk about that in a second. But before we get to this, we have to talk about how Search Property came.
Yeah, well, it was after going through that period of purchasing property, buying the first one, learning a bunch of shit. You're like, you shouldn't buy that because it's there. And then you're like, okay, cool, I'll write it down. And you start learning a few things as you go along. But as I was making some of those mistakes, I realized after the fact, and you're like, I could have done it this way and it probably would have made me an extra 20%. Or I should have picked that property even though it was slightly more. It's actually more desirable than that one. So as I was going through my 20s, it was figuring out, one, what was I passionate about? Trying different careers. At one point, I worked at a funeral home to do marketing there, just because they were paying the highest, dollar per hour. And then it was just figuring out, okay, if I invest in this many properties, how's it going to work? How does finance work? How does tax work? And going out there and trying to find the right people to give me that advice. And back then, just like you didn't have as much in terms of help with first home owner grants and things, there wasn't as much education either. Yeah. Now there's like every second person on LinkedIn's talking about this and that when it comes to LMI, or, buy this property when it's got this and this. Back then it wasn't. And so for me, it was like, as I'm going through this as a young guy, there's going to be younger people that are going to go through the same thing. And there's going to be people that didn't do this in their 20s. They're going to come in their 30s and go, shit, I'm behind. And so I thought, if I've done it and I've got scar tissue from making some of those mistakes, why don't I streamline it for people? Because it's such an emotional decision. You make one mistake in the property market, you're done. Like, you talk about resets.
You back for 5 or 10 years.
100%.
Yeah. And that's literally what happened to me, man. Like there were people that bought, like I have some mates that were, got into the property market 5 years after me, even more. And because they made a better decision on which property they bought and in the area they bought, they like, so you can make good decisions that fast track your journey and accelerate you 5 years. And you can make decisions that set you back 5 years. And so the delta is actually 10 years. That's a decade that you can screw yourself. Versus, let's call it the opportunity versus the opportunity cost. But yeah.
Which is why it's so important you get the foundation right. Because your first 2 properties are by far the most important. You get to like 6 or 7, and I know some people will be like 6 or 7 properties. Like if you have a system, just like if I come into your workplace tomorrow and I say, like, how do you do this? And you probably got an automation for this, and then this happens, and when this happens. Yeah. And to me, looking at it for the first time, I'm like, bro, what just happened? I didn't know how that worked. It's the same thing when you've got a system when it comes to property or knowing due diligence, knowing which areas to look at, relationships. They're not just built overnight. Some people, sort of go, okay, well, I know the location. This buyer's agent mentioned this is the location I should go in. They pick up the phone and you're like now competing with other buyer's agents or people that have better relationships. And if we both pick up the phone to the same agent and you've picked up the phone for the first time talking to them versus I've done 6 deals with them over the last 12 months, who do you think's getting the insider knowledge? It's going to be us, because they're going to go, well, I don't know what Julian's finance looks like. He's going to cause me headaches. With you, I know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about at a very surface level. You can have the strategy, you can find even the location, and you'll still fall over on the last deal, because if the agent pulls a nice little spiel, you'll go, oh my God, there's other buyers, and you end up paying 10, 20K extra, and that compounds over time.
Yeah, we see that a lot actually. Even like we're trying to get a tenancy for our office in New Zealand. We're using a co-working space now, and we like having our own space, deck it out the way we like. You know, you've seen or seen clips of our office in Rhodes here. Like, we care a lot about the space that we're in and know how important it is for culture to like cultivate your own space. And anyway, so we're looking at places there, and the commercial real estate agents, you know, like they've got all like New Zealand, great country, but the salespeople and the real estate agents there are like the real estate agents like from say 5 years ago here.
Oh, okay.
They have the expired sales tactics that, you know, you don't need to sell me, mate. I'm coming to you because I like the property.
Yeah.
All you need to do is like negotiate a deal with me. You don't need to go, we have 6 other tenants on it, and it's like, oh, no worries, then give it to them. And then, oh no, like it's like that shit doesn't work on me, man. It doesn't work on me. Just please don't. You know, like I think I've done enough sales courses. I've watched enough fucking videos online from sales trainers. I know what you're doing. Like, maybe the average Joe doesn't, but like if somebody's in some element of sales, don't underestimate them. Talk to them like they're a person.
Yep.
Or you don't need to sell me. Like, I'm the sort of person that I sell myself. Like, I literally sell myself. I like it. I'm not going to inquire unless I actually really want the property. I've already done my research. I've looked at maybe 200 links of other properties before I've come to this one and put an inquiry. You don't need to go all out. You don't need to oversell. Just don't be a dickhead. And like you
get the sale.
You get the sale. Just shut up. Actually, don't say anything. Just say yes to a deal that I agree to, and that's about it. That's about all you need to do.
I feel like that's like sales now, you know, in the modern day. People now, especially with social media, and you probably have that similar experience where people just want to be spoken to as humans, and they will just want to be transparent.
Yeah, that's it.
And for our sales team, they're consultants. So yes, there's going to be, I'm going to get you from point A to point B because I need to hold your hand. But there's no sales tactics like, oh my God, you know, like there's 3 other people and then we're going to book it out for this month and there's no more options and you're going to have to wait till next month. None of that crap. It's like, we built Search Property off my YouTube channel, which was, I'm just going to make some videos. Some people are going to nerd it out with me. I had like 2 people listening in the beginning. Now there's like 86,000, which is cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And all I did was, hey, I'm going to share my thoughts around what's happening in the market. And if you like what I say, come on board and we can do it together. If you don't, take the free advice or free opinion and do what you need with it. And that's the same way we've approached it with the sales team or consulting team. And yeah, we probably leave a lot of money on the table. But at least at the end of the day, I'm going, we're not selling our product or service to someone who doesn't need it. You're better off walking away from that, because at the end of the whole cycle, they're going to be like, bro, you screwed me over. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Versus you've got advocates that love what you do because you've picked the right people as well.
And I didn't want to like lead with this, but it's probably perfect timing to talk about it, because these like buyers agents were not really a thing, and I spoke about it with a guest earlier this week. They were not really a thing that long ago. Like, it was pretty rare in the US. It's like everywhere,
huge, yeah.
Right? It's like everybody does a deal with a buyer's like. Nobody buys property in the US without a buyer's agent, essentially. It's pretty rare. And now we're seeing them pop up more and more in Australia. But there are a lot of people who are, unfortunately, doing the wrong thing by their clients. Like, what are some of the red flags that you've seen? Because I know you run a pretty good operation, mate. Like, it's I've been there, the office, like, you put a lot of yourself and the rest of your company out there. People know what they're getting when everything feels familiar. Certainly there was some familiar faces when I walked in there. But clearly you come up against some of these other that promise the world and, you know, I've got this secret off market, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's all that shit. What are the red flags that people should be looking for if they're looking to engage a buyer's agent?
I think one of the biggest things, and you've nailed it, is over the last couple of years, you've seen the explosion of everyone wants to become a buyer's agent. It's a new industry. There's demand for it and people are jumping on. And I think one of the biggest red flags is finding that the person has had a career that's totally unrelated, and then they're coming into industry and going, oh yeah, I think I could charge you 10, 15K and I'll find you a property. They've got no runs on the board. And if you go, okay, well, I started search property about 5 years ago, but before that I was in mortgage broking, and before that I did conveyancing for about 3 years. So for me, I built the portfolio since 21 and I'm 32 now. So for me, I've seen, yes, I may not be the old 50-year-old that's gone through the recession that we had to have and whatnot, but I've seen a lot. And I am truly passionate about it. Whereas I think what's happened, and that's why we need a bit of a correction in the market too, is you get cleansers. You get a cleansing out of the market when things don't go according to plan. It happened in 2015-16 when it was the top of the market in Sydney. You had everyone wanting to become a real estate agent. You're like, it's easy money. I remember having the thought too. I was like, bro, this is easy. Like, that guy doesn't even know how to talk and he's getting sales.
I don't want to disrupt your flow there, but I have to point this out. When I bought my house in 2015, I'd been around automotive car salespeople because I was doing a lot of automotive finance. I was so underwhelmed with the caliber of real estate agent. I cannot tell you. I literally went to open homes and some of them wouldn't even say hello. They open the door and go, have a look around, let me know if you have any questions. That is exactly what you just said. It was easy money and every man and his dog wanted to be a real estate agent. It was embarrassing, the caliber of customer service and salesmanship. Like, look, personally, I can look around the house myself. Mm-hmm. I do my research on the property, but they don't know that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to be honest with you, I kind of prefer that. Like, I kind of prefer.
Like,
don't tell me about how this fucking archway was made in 19. Like, I don't care. Just shut up. Like, go wait in the corner. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, just let me look at the house. I know what I'm looking at. If there's anything I need to know, tell me. But other than that, just let me have a look and see if it feels like home or not. That's kind of how I make the decision. But they don't know that. Like, and at the very least, they should want to offer a tour and and then I can say, look, just let us look around, and if we have any questions, we'll come find you. I was so underwhelmed. I was like, if this is the caliber, we're absolutely in a sort of a bubble. Yeah. Like, if this is the caliber of people, and it turns out there was a bit of a deflation of that bubble, and that's why it took me 5 years to get out of that property.
Well, it's the same thing happening now, right? We're going through this period where buyers agents are like, I'll post up a few ads, make some content, hire a studio, whatever it is, and then do my content. I'm going to get at least 1 or 2 clients, people that don't really know how it works. It's probably a friend of a friend. They trust them. What are you charging? I think everyone's charging about 15K. I'll charge 15K. They do a couple of deals, but they're not coming from a place of, I love this stuff. Like, I have to drool over the data and the finance and how it all works. They're coming going, I can monetize this. Yeah. I can make as much money as fast as possible. So when you got like people who yesterday were a baker and now become your buyer's agent who charges you 15K is a lot of money, right? Yeah. And if you're going, I'm just going to do it and then it's a short run, you can't do anything like that. You know this as well, where you've probably seen it with other people, even for yourself, where you've gone, I'm going to pick this up because maybe I can make extra dollars. It doesn't last long. It's got to come from within. And I think where we're at in this cycle is, you mentioned red flags earlier. Yeah, biggest one is how long have they been doing this for, and are they actually here for the right reasons? 2, a lot of people, they're like cowboys in real estate. So we've seen it in real estate agents, but in buyers agents, they're also roaming around like cowboys. Some of the contracts, they just sort of made it up on the spot. They come in and they try and find a property. We go up against a lot, and real estate agents tell us a lot as well. And they're like, yeah, so they actually paid this much, which the real estate agent themselves are telling us it's not worth that much. They paid 20, 30K extra, no pest and build clause, no finance clause. Why? Because they trusted the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent's got no idea what he's doing. So when you see that, you're like, okay, cool. I hope there's, a cleansing of the market where the people that are good operators, they'll get to the top and they need to do what they need to do because they're working ethically. But because there's easy money there, unfortunately, you get a lot of cowboys coming in. So it's hard.
Yeah. And one of the worst, most egregious examples I think that I've seen is when these buyers agents just have relationships with these project marketers, and they're just selling like off the plan, sort of high density, like low level of rarity to it, and they're just like, it's just like a puppy mill, they're just it's like a commodity. Like commodity properties are not necessarily always a great investment. You know, like you want to find the hidden gem. You need somebody who knows what to look for, and the difference between, you know, like in some suburbs, the amount of car spaces are really important, right? And it's like in some, like you need somebody who is an expert. It's like trying to navigate. Here's how I probably will explain my understanding of it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Some people, when they buy a car, they walk into the finance office in a dealership, right? That is the equivalent, in my opinion, of somebody who is just after money. Their incentive structure in the dealership is, let's say, you know, and I don't want to pick on any specific lender or any specific company because there's good and bad in all of them. But just for not saying they do the wrong thing, don't send me a fucking lawsuit. But let's say it's a Toyota dealership and they have Toyota finance, and then you've got the business manager who's employed by the dealership, and his incentive structure is around putting the loan to Toyota finance. He's told to put it to Toyota finance. Doesn't mean that that is the best lender or the best choice for the customer. He only has one, maybe two, maybe at the very most three options, versus going to a broker, and the broker is an expert in understanding, and he has an obligation to do the right thing by you. And, you know, there's things like best interest duty and whatever. Like, it's where our regulation side of things is far more strict than dealerships who fall under what's called a point of sale exemption. So there's that, right? So we have obligations to do the right things by the customer, whereas they can get off scot-free because technically just the risk falls with the lender, not with the dealership or that particular finance manager. And so that's the difference. Like a buyer's agent who's just in it, they're kind of like the dealer finance, know. And then you've got the broker, or in this case, it would be a buyer's agent who's doing the right thing. They know the little intricacies. They know, I've seen your credit profile before. I know that this lender is a better fit for what your needs and requirements are. I'm not trying to sell you a particular lender, or because, you know, it's very obvious when that happens because you're like, oh, are they paying you the most amount of commission? How come every time you just keep pushing this one lender, even though my requirements have changed or whatever? And so I feel like it's the same thing. That's probably an analogy of how it works in our space versus, you know, in the buyer's agent space.
That's 100% correct. You know, you can see it even in the mortgage space. We deal with like a lot of brokers that have come and approached us, and we've tried a lot of services as well. And now we have to do it in-house as well. But, you know, we've seen them where they go, oh, well, yeah, we'll just go with CBA, or we'll just go with ANZ. And it's like, did you even look at second tier, third tier lenders? Like, there's so many options out there. You're just not even like looking at those sort of things because they're like, oh, it doesn't service, because they're just being lazy at their job. Same thing here is, you know, I get emails like on the monthly now. Hopefully they probably watch my videos. That's why they don't approach me as much. But, you know, the off the plan, house and land sort of people, sales reps, and they'll go, oh, cool. You know, what you can do, this is the shit that goes down, is I'll go, Ravi, you run search property, you've built a lot of credibility. What you can do is you can charge your client your buyer's agent fee, okay? And then what you can do is sell them one of these things that we have, stock on hand, and you'll get a payment from us for marketing the product. And I'm like, what? So they're trying to get me to double dip. And it is outrageous how much you can make.
Yeah, I know.
Anywhere between like 40 to 120K. And you're like,
fucking insane.
Forget about even like trying to get money from my client. You're telling me that I have to ethically say that this is a good property and I'm getting it paid like 20% of what the property is worth as a marketing fee. And that's how, you know, people get roped in because they think that's a buyer's agent. He's helping me buy something that, you know, looks really nice in brochures.
There's a beautiful brochure. There's always a beautiful brochure.
If there's a brochure,
that's a
start
flag.
Running.
Yeah, that's a red flag. If there's a sexy brochure, fucking run in the other way. Well, yeah, I think, and the problem with these kinds of guys is, and look, I'm sure there's some good some people have made money from off the plan properties. Right? I'm not saying everybody. We're making some generalized statements here, but my point is, when you're like truly good buys, whether it's cars, whether it's homes, whether it's art, it's always based on like scarcity or Correct. The rarity of that. So you're buying something that there's literally 50 others almost identical in stock. There's a good chance that doesn't make sense. There's a good chance. Like it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. You've obviously covered a lot of steps there. When was the day that you decided, okay, that's it, I'm doing search property? Like what was the catalyst?
I think I got my license in 2019. At that point, I thought I was going to be the best hybrid mortgage broker buyer's agent. So I had the license for the mortgage broking, and I was like, cool, I've got conveyancing in my back pocket as well. I've got my license there. I'm going to become a buyer's agent, and I don't see anyone else doing this. So I could be the one-stop shop, and I'll do all of it.
Yeah.
And obviously the pandemic kicks in, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start this business. So I started literally in March lockdowns, and I thought, I'll just make some videos on YouTube and see what happens. And literally no traction for the first 3 months. And I was like, okay, cool, this can be difficult. But at that time, you're sitting at home and everyone's getting JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and whatever else in between. And you're like, okay, well, this is the time that I can try. What's the worst going to happen? I try this for a year, it doesn't work out. I've got the mortgage broking stuff, I go into conveyancing, I'm building up my portfolio. I can always get a job in marketing, no problems. So I took that risk to go down that path, and then after I had made enough videos, then there was people that reached out once or twice, and I started doing discovery calls and talking to people, which I really enjoyed, because you're like, all of a sudden you're watching me on YouTube and now contacting me. Oh, this is freaking weird. And you don't even live in Sydney. And so at that point, late end of 2020 is when I started getting a bit more traction. And I think it was literally 6 months later, I think I got my brother on as the first employee. And then from there, we've grown it to I think it's 50 full-time staff. So
yeah, wow.
It's rapidly grown, but I think it's a product of you doing the right thing by not just your clients, but also your people. And I know you're big on this, when it comes to culture and your employees, man, you got to work as a team. And you as the leader aren't, I think it was 10 years ago, you could watch videos, maybe it's Ty Lopez and whatnot, where they're just yeah, I'm the owner, and look at me, I've got jets and this and that. And you're like, bro, as a leader, you want to be connected to your people.
Yeah.
And for me, and I know you're the same, is what drives you is going, man, I've got a responsibility not just for my own family, I've got them and their families too.
Well, before I hire someone, the acid test for me, whether I hire someone or not, is am I in a position, am I going to be wanting to pay for this person's mortgage? Because that's ultimately what you're doing, right? It's if I don't feel that strongly about this person, that I want to feel like I'm paying their mortgage, then you kind of know what the answer is, right? And so that's really what you do. It's a tremendous responsibility. These people are building their entire lives and making plans to get married, and we have a young team, and when we do goal setting, I was telling you kind of before we went on air, it's all of them. I made sure they had some savings goals in there, or some ability to sort of try and get into the property market by the end of this year. And so the reason for that is it's not selfish on my part. It's I wish I had somebody that did that for me. I wish I had somebody that was saying, these are all the things. Here's how not to fucking do it.
Yeah. Cause I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is exactly what I'm trying to do as well. Is we're trying to create a workplace we never got. So
yeah,
you're
exactly.
going, I want to be the best boss that, I'm approachable to these guys, but I'm also invested in them enough to go, okay, develop your skills, invest in things, and you just become better as a person, and you're going to bring your best self into work, which works for me and it works for you. But that's sort of what you're doing, right?
It is. And the measure of that, of how, I'll tell you how I'm going to know if I truly was successful at creating this kind of workplace is when Loan Options, let's say successfully build the business, continue building the business, somebody comes along and wants to write me an enormous check for the business. Long after my affiliation with the business is done, let's say that's 10 years from now, I'm going to look at the roster that was once upon a time Loan Options roster and see what those people have done with their careers. And if they're all still in the same spot, haven't really progressed, I'm going to know that I failed as a leader. If I look at them and they're all successful entrepreneurs, they know how to run a P&L, they know how to do they know how to market a product, they know how to create a product, they know how to build a product, then I'm going to know that I was successful, because I'm not trying to hoard the staff and keep them in their lane and you stay here. I'm literally trying to teach these people to be business owners themselves. And because if I can get them to understand how to run a business, they'll help me run my own business first. And eventually, I'm not naive. These people, if I teach them well enough, they're going to want to do their own thing at some point. It's just the nature of our industry.
Yep.
You reach a ceiling. And so we're doing things we're having employee share plans and LTI, long-term incentives that tie them to the business and, feel like they're part of it and let them treat it like it's their own business. But that's going to be the measure. The measure is going to be 10, 15 years from now, go and look at the roster, everyone who ever was touched by Loan Options or worked with Loan Options. And I'm not talking about the ones that fly in 2-3 months and they don't make it, and they either get pushed out or they see the writing on the wall. I'm talking about we have a pretty low, very low turnover in our business. I'm talking about the ones that were there either from the start or the ones that came in and had some good tenure there. If they're still in the same spot in a few years after this is all said and done, then I'm going to know that I failed. If they're going to do great things, then I'm going to feel accomplished. So it is a long-term thing. It's a way of looking at it that I think it's important. If you're not genuinely investing in your staff in that way, I think you're setting your own business up for failure. I really, really, truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. So if I can teach these people how to do all the aspects of the business, if I can teach them why personal branding is important, if I can teach them why marketing is important when you've got a tiny budget compared to some of your competitors. It's a bootstrap business. Like, hey man, personal brand is everything. It's a service business. If I can teach them that and I can show them how to do it and give them like a blueprint for how to run a business and how to treat people, they'll run, like let's say you have 30 core people in the business, and there's anywhere between 5 and 10 that will be there for a year to 3 years. There's 30 core people. There's 5 that come in and out at any given point in time. If you look at those 30 core people and you look at what matters to them, it should be very, very close to what matters to me. And if it doesn't, then we're hiring wrong.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I see it. But yeah, and I spoke about this with you last time, but it's crazy how much like overlap and crossover, and the stories you're telling me, I'm like, you literally could just replace Ravi with Julian, and so for me, one of the first employees was not my brother, but my sister. So
cool.
Yeah, so she's just come back from mat leave now, but she was a very integral part of the early, and my brother-in-law's in the business, and now my younger sister, she's a wizard, man. She's 17 years old, just finished school, and she's starting uni now and all that kind of stuff, but she's working part-time for the business. She's an absolute wizard, and it's so good for me to be able to share this journey with them as well, because my other 2 brothers, they're in construction. Like, one of them's a builder, one of them's got a concrete truck that he operates, and so they're very different careers, very different. But I feel like I said, you just replace Ravi with Julian and it makes sense. Like, sibling, first employee, blah, blah, blah. There's all these things. But
don't you feel so fortunate that you get to go to work with amazing people, but also your siblings or family members?
Yeah. And my brother-in-law is literally like my brother as well. Like, we're actually very close. And my other brother-in-law, who's our accountant. Like, it's all, it just feels, it doesn't feel like I'm ever alone in it. You know what I mean? It's in being a startup founder, like it's a fucking difficult road. There's no doubt about it. And especially if you're bootstrapping it and you're pouring your own money into it, and every time there's a tough month or a tough couple of months in a row, it's like, yep, back to the put money back in, refinance the house, put money back in. It's like, it's not easy. So it's nice to have those people there to kind of share the pain and share the bit of the journey with. But the other thing that's weird is we almost ended up neighbors in offices. I remember telling you the story.
Yes.
So this goes back to real estate agents again. And so we're looking for our 4th office in 14 months. Like that, we started the business. We grew really fast. We went from tiny little shoebox office in Parramatta to a co-working space because we knew we were going to grow. Eventually, we moved into an office with 5 Doc, and we're doing like a shared tenancy with another finance business. And then we decided, because we were outgrowing that place, to get our own office, and with this other finance business. So we look at, we drop everybody's address on a map, and we put down, here's where we should look. And it was everywhere from Homebush, Rhodes, Macquarie Park, like everywhere around there. That was kind of like center of Sydney, basically. And so we actually signed a heads of agreement for a place at 4 Drake Avenue, and like, yep, all good. We're really happy with it, it's and then we get a call saying that, and this happened a couple of times, but for one of them was that somebody put in a higher bid or something like that. We negotiated pretty well. It was around COVID, so like nobody was doing work from the office. Like, in some ways it was the greatest time to sign a lease because there was nobody doing it, and so you could negotiate very aggressively. And but yeah, anyway, so they gave the property to someone else, maybe somebody might have even been an existing tenant that wanted to move or something. I don't remember the story, but then we ended up where we are now. But literally, that office would have been like on the same floor.
It was literally next to us.
Yeah,
because you come in for the podcast and we're like, and you're going, oh, this looks familiar. Actually, we're going to go get that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've actually moved since there as well. We
Okay.
went downstairs. So I think similar story. Again, I can see the similarity. Like within 12 months, we've had to do the third move. Same sort of thing. And in our case, we ended up signing the first lease, and commercial leases are a headache. So you have to stay with the same landlord if you want to upgrade. So we moved from that office downstairs. So that was like a 34-person office, and now we've got like a 101-person office.
Wow.
And things are looking good, but I'm hoping that we're here for a little while. But it's like a pro and con, because you're like, I hope that we stay here, but I also hope we don't, because if we don't, we probably did something really well to have outgrown this place faster than we thought. So now you're in Rhodes, so I've got to come down and we've got to chill out
anytime,
at your place.
man. Anytime, come around. And so like you obviously have the same kind of ethos in terms of the way that you market the business. It's all about putting yourself out there, creating educational content, also being a bit silly and not taking yourself too seriously. I think people resonate with that. I really have found that. I think when you just put only serious stuff out there, it's great and it's fine, but I feel like if you can make people laugh or smile when they're not really in the mood to be spoken to about property or finance or any of those things, it's it keeps them following and keeps them following along. And I feel like it's part of the story. Like I kind of think of our social media feeds and even the stuff that I post on LinkedIn and stuff, I think it is like scrapbooking. Like if you kind of fast forward 5 or 10 years and you go through those posts again, you're going to be like, fuck, that's what I was thinking at that point in time and how things have changed, or fuck, I was in a good place there and now I'm not. Like whatever the situation is, it's kind of you get to see a snapshot in time. It's literally like scrapbooking. So yeah.
I think on that point as well, not taking yourself too seriously, it's like you've got different sides to you.
Yeah.
So when you're constantly just putting up like, the serious content, this, that, people are going to look through it and they go, well, I feel like this is more of an ad and this is only one part of you, and I don't think I'm getting the full authentic Julian or Ravi. Yeah. And when people start like knowing who you are, that's the whole beauty of personal branding, which is they want to buy from people, not brands.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where,
especially service businesses.
Yeah.
Like if you're selling me a phone cover and it's an e-commerce drop shipping store or something, I don't need to know.
Don't even worry about it.
Bro, I'm not interested in your story. Sell me the phone cover. Let me put it on my phone. Fucking that's it, But if you're a service-based business, yeah, I do want to know you. I want to understand how consistent you are over time. Because there's people that are fake, and I can tell straight away. There's some people I watch their videos and I'm like, that's the exact opposite of what you told me to do last week. You just saw fucking Alex Hormozy or Gary Vee say something, and now and so I think the truest expression of me is probably Instagram, and I'll explain why. LinkedIn's algorithm doesn't like very frequent posting. Mm-hmm. You can't, there's no stories anymore. They used to have stories. They took that away.
Oh yeah, I saw that for a little bit.
Yeah. And so I kind of hated when they took away stories, because there's so many things I would like to be able to put on LinkedIn about my day or the thing, but they're not appropriate to be posts. You know what I mean? And they're just like me having a rant about something. Whereas my Instagram, you can put stories up. I hardly ever post. I might post seriously twice a year, 3 times a year. That's it. But I am quite active on stories, and because I'm literally, I'll see something, I'll take a photo of it, and then I'll put it on my stories, and that's how easy. It doesn't need a lot of thought, doesn't need whatever. But that, I think if people want to see the funny side of me, you can't really be funny on LinkedIn because you got 2, maybe 3 posts a week that you can put on before it just gets lost in the and no one's seeing your shit, and so they have to be a bit more curated or a bit more well thought out, because it's okay, let's say I've got 2 posts that I can do this week. What do they actually need to be? What am I wanting to talk about? And it might be something that's going on, or it might be about teams, or it might be about a new product we've launched. So I've only got 2 slots, in my week for LinkedIn. Whereas Instagram, I can just literally, I'll be I was at the F1 and there was someone that looked or was trying to look like Lewis Hamilton, like same hair, same shirt, same earrings. And I was like, what is wrong? Who let him out of the house like this? You know what I mean? Like who told him this was a good idea? But that, I feel like that is so important to put that side out of you. You might not see that version of me on LinkedIn. And it's not because I don't want to do that. I actually want to do that. But the algorithm doesn't allow for me to post 3 stories a day or 3 times a day about what's happening, like as I'm at the F1 or at a work event, something funny happens or whatever. It shouldn't be a LinkedIn post because, you know, it's just not how it works. But I would love to see them bring back stories or something like that, because I feel like you would get more authenticity from everybody on LinkedIn instead of the I'm thrilled to announce. Like, and then the chat GPT written responses that have the double hyphen and stuff. Like, please, here's the problem. They want us to take everybody so seriously, and you know, there's like all these posts about all these things, and everybody's pretending to be, you know, an advocate, you know, the best supporter of International Women's Day possible, and all of them are just ChatGPT written. Like, you want me to believe that you're a supporter of women on international,
right?
Yeah. If you can't even write a 30-second post, like, it tells me everything I need to know about you. You know, like, you didn't even think to fix the double hyphen, so it's not obvious that you did it on ChatGPT.
How long do you spend on socials on a personal front?
Instagram, I spend probably an hour or 2 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn, almost no time. So I spend time posting. I hardly scroll LinkedIn. I'll spend like maybe 20 minutes a day on LinkedIn. But most of the time I spend on LinkedIn is either posting or responding to comments and things that are on my posts, or DMs. My DMs are always like on fire in LinkedIn. Is half of it, unfortunately, is just pure spam and auto shit. But there's actually really good opportunities that present themselves. So I need to do that. Mm-hmm. But I would say I spend more time on Instagram than I do on LinkedIn.
So you're probably looking at what, like 2 hours a day, maybe?
Yeah, 2 hours a day. Yeah,
so the reason I bring this up is because, you know, for the audience that's probably going to listen, given where you're at and where I'm at and people that follow us, people spend like a good 4 to 5 hours a day on their phones. So their screen time's so high. And what I wanted to ask you about was how long you spend on it, because I'm probably like 40 minutes a day that I'll spend on socials, and that's it. And you seem like you're the same if it wasn't for the work, right? If you were just
if you take out emails, and you take out responding to work-related DMs on LinkedIn, it's probably not 40 minutes. It'll still be more than that. And I'll explain why. I don't watch any TV. I don't listen to news. I don't do any of that. The only way I get my information is from curated accounts that I have on Instagram, and that'll be things I like sport. Or the only time I watch TV is like sport events, like football or something like that. I never watch the news. I never watch any, like, you will never, ever, ever get me to watch like Married at First Sight.
I was just about to say, you're not a maths fan.
No. I would literally, like, this 2 things that I swore to myself I would never do. One is dance on TikTok. I will never do that. You'll never find me dancing on TikTok. Second thing you won't find me doing is watching Married at First Sight. But they're just personal choices. They're things that I find to be, you know, a certain level of, you know, cringe, and it doesn't suit me. That's not who I am.
Yep.
If you go to a party, you won't see me dancing. So why would I dance on TikTok?
Fair enough.
True?
Fair enough.
So I think those things are a thing, but I spend time on Instagram because I'm scrolling, like, I have, like, you know, these jiu-jitsu community people that I talk to. I have like the sport accounts. I have friends. I also have colleagues on Instagram, and like, you can't always share things on LinkedIn. Yep. Because they're not on that platform. They're like, it's something that comes up on Instagram that you want to share with your colleague. It's just easy to press the little thing and DM it, right? So yeah, I think my total screen time is somewhere around 5 hours a day, but that's because I'm literally, like, I'm out of everybody in the business, I'm the least at my desk, right? It just sounds about right anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah, because I'm always out and about, it's like I do spend time on the phone. I do spend time emails and messages and work-related stuff. WhatsApp, we have a marketing channel that's just like on fire every day. You know, here's what's going on. Where's this up to, blah, blah, blah. So, but altogether, it's probably about 5 hours a day. Sometimes it's less than that. It just depends, like, what's actually going on. If there's a, you know, big world event or something that's going on, or like, you know, something really big, The most it's ever gotten to is probably like 5.5 hours. Like it's not usually ever higher than that.
It's one of the biggest hacks for people that are young, because they can sit there and say, well, we don't have time, and like I'm busy working 9 to 5, and then I've got no time to start up that side hustle. You can literally knock off 2 hours off your screen time, and there's your
Without
there's your
even
time.
trying, you can knock off 2 hours.
And because it's not like it's a conscious thing, right? If you sort of fall into that doom scrolling sort of thing, and yeah, that's how you get to the hours that some people get to. But if people come to you and say, okay, well, I want to take a bit more accountability in my life and have the side hustle, but I don't have time. So, bro, you got an extra 10 hours in the week, and you can build a phenomenal business off the back of 10 hours, especially now with AI and the tools that you have. That's just an accountability thing.
You can do online courses and do them at 1.5 times speed, and you will knock off that many. You'll learn new skills, and you'll be a different person. If you actually dedicated 90 days of your time, of not fucking around and scrolling TikTok and watching people dance all day, if you actually dedicated 90 days, and even if it was just an hour or two a night, you would be a totally different person in 90 days. And if it's not a course, listen to audiobooks. You absolutely will be a different person in 90 days. That's 100% fact. Like you'll hardly recognize yourself. You will hardly recognize your interests and hobbies after 90 days. You will, because the other thing that happens is there's actually a psychological thing that's occurring when you're doom scrolling, right? You actually get like a dopamine deficit, and each time you scroll, you get a little spike and a little spike and a little spike, and so it keeps you scrolling, because when you stop, you're actually going to hit, like, how many people have done, I've felt it before. You actually feel like you're on a downer when you stop. And so the natural reaction is like, I'm going to like pick it up and see what else is happening. Maybe someone's posted something. But that's what happens. You actually, so every time you spike your dopamine, it comes back down a little lower than it was before, because there's like anything, it spikes.
Yeah, anything
it has to
abnormal,
return,
right? Yeah.
But you got the spike, so you got the abnormal surge. So when it returns, it doesn't go back to the baseline. It actually goes a little bit lower for a period. It will normalize, but it's like water. When you jiggle a bucket, all the water will go to one side, and then it will come back to the other side, but it will go further back than it originally was. But eventually, if you leave it, it'll settle and be still again. And so that's actually what's happening, is people get like a deficit. It's lower than the baseline, and then they need to scroll and see the next thing to get the spike again and keep it at that level. And so eventually they have to stop. And maybe that's right before bed or something like that. But then they're going to be going to bed with like, the brain chemistry is not where it should be. So, we went on a tangent there, and we were talking about, mental health and social media. It's clearly, some people are content creators and some people are content consumers. Some people are a hybrid of both. I think like on LinkedIn, I'm definitely somebody who creates at a scale of maybe 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 versus consume.
Yep.
On Instagram, there's definitely more consuming. I still create, but I reckon it's probably create 1 to consume 2 or 3. That's just the reality. That's the only place I actually get news, updates, what's going on, know what's going on with friends, know what's going on in events that are relevant to me. But yeah, if you told me tomorrow that, hey, you could be so much further along in your life, just cut that part out, I would say, yeah, you're 100% right.
It's such an easy win. Yeah. And I think something that I guess we'll come back to the book, but something that I've sort of learned to appreciate a lot more over the last sort of 12 to 18 months was picking up a book and not having something digital. Because I went on through the whole, I'm going to get on a Kindle and I want to learn through there. And I realized that when you used to do it on iPad, and then you got an actual Kindle, and then you're like, there's something different about having like a paperback book in your hand. And so I found like a bit of a system for myself. But when reading and then trying to absorb that information and then trying to implement it, that's where I think the beauty in what we do is you can read something and try and execute. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people aren't in that space, and that's probably why some people won't be able to take on all of the information if it's a book by The Diary of a CEO from Stephen Bartlett, and he's going, oh, this is how you manage your team. You might go in tomorrow and go, I'm going to try that in my next meeting.
Yeah.
But some people might just learn it and go, well, where am I going to implement this? So it's a bit weird on that front. Are you big on reading?
I read a lot, but I do audiobooks, and
Okay.
here's the reason why. I always buy the physical copy, and the reason is if I really like the book, I'll use the physical copy and highlight the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Like I would literally make that thing like rainbow in color. Like, and so I actually prefer physical books, but I find it very hard to concentrate and read. Whereas when I'm in the car and I travel like even say 40 or 50 minutes to go to my gym in Artarmon from where I live in Parramatta. So I can
you go to the gym in Artarmon?
Yeah, it's not like a normal. It's a jiu-jitsu gym.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a jiu-jitsu
I was
gym.
going to say, but what do they do there?
No, it's not like if I was just lifting weights, I'd go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, I go to like our office has a gym, or I go to Club Lime near like Rhodes, near our office, and then go straight to the office, shower, get ready for the day. But like, you can't do jiu-jitsu anywhere, and you know, if you go to the wrong gym, you know, and the culture's bad or whatever, like you can get hurt. Like that's just facts. And I've been there for like since they opened the gym. I've got a great relationship with the coaches. The culture is really good. So for me, it's worth driving there, and then it's basically halfway back home where the office is. So like I go there, I kind of miss some of the traffic. Artarmon's a long way away, but my old office in the previous business I was the GM of, it was 2 streets away. So like Artarmon made sense then, but then I started Loan Options and I go down this journey, and our office is in Rhodes. But I'm just a loyal person. It's easier for me to go to a gym much closer, but I feel like I'm part of that ecosystem, part of that community, and I'm very happy with the coaches. I trust in what they're teaching me, and you know, I'm seeing improvement in myself. So yeah. Anyway, so I go to the gym and like I'll get 40 or 50 minutes, so I can get through podcasts or audiobooks multiple per week. And so for me, that's the fastest way for me to consume. I always listen on like 1.5 times speed. But if I really like the book or I have like filler stuff as well. Like for example, like I'll play when I haven't got a new book to read and like I'm up to date with say Joe Rogan podcast or whatever, and there isn't really anything new. I have like the Bible that I'll just like play and then like listen to it. And that's like a slow burn that I'll have like over the course of the year. But I'm always looking for recommendations. I've read, I don't know what the number is, but I have a bookshelf at the office and I've read like nearly every book in there because every time I want to read the audiobook, I make sure I have the physical copy, because if I like something that's said, I'll find it, highlight it, put a post-it note in there. And then if I ever need to refer to that, or I'm like struggling with something in business, I'm like, what did that person say? And it could be Stephen Bartlett, or it could be Jocko Willink in Extreme Ownership. Like I think I've read that book maybe 5 times, and audiobook and physical book and all of it. So some books are just, every time you read them, you learn something new, and they're just like evergreen and they're always relevant to something that's going on in your business. I love those books. But yeah, I do love reading. I think it's so important. I went probably, when I was a kid, I was a little nerd. All I used to read was like Harry Potter and stuff, and I'd sit in the corner and read the big novels. But probably around high school, I stopped reading. I just wasn't that interested. And I would read, but I would read different things. Like I would go on car forums and like read about cars and people building their cars. And like I learned everything about Honda engines. That's where that little Hot Wheels car behind, So like, I learned everything there was to know about Honda engines, and my brother was a mechanic, so I used to help him build his car in the back. So I did read, but I read in a different kind of way. Car forums, like engine manuals, like
we just go through different interests, right?
That's exactly right. And the things that interest me the most are the things that I'm passionate about right now, and so like now more business and self-help books are more relevant than they were when I was 18 years old. You know, like
100%.
18 years old, I just loved cars, and that's all I could, like, that's all I wanted was like, fast car, and I wanted, but and so you started in 2020, and then we're now in 2025, you got over 50 people, got an office, basically ready for 100. Are you thinking like, what are the long-term goals for the business? Like where are you thinking this ends up?
I think for us, it's doubling down on what works. And we're starting to see like the amount of deals that we source, the amount of clients that are coming on board, it just keeps ramping up. And it's because, we're getting more reach But I think it's not just reach for the content we put out. It's more so people have had a positive experience and they're now spreading that word as well. So I'd mentioned as well, so we've got a mortgage broking sort of arm to the business now, which my wife actually runs. And then there's a legal firm in there as well now. There's an accounting firm as well. And there's an insurance firm now as well. And so the idea is that as those businesses grow and you sort of help scale them up as well, because there's learnings that you've had that they're now going to go through. That's probably where I'm getting a lot more energy as well, is cultivating the leadership, cultivating the people that are there, and then cultivating these businesses. But if I'm looking at sort of the next 2 to 3 years, there's like a few other projects that we're working on, which, that get me excited, but is also stuff that I know enough about to go, okay, I need to partner up with the right people and then we can go and branch out that way. Yeah. But I think, when people ask me, it's like, oh, you got to create content, like, oh, this and that. Man, I absolutely love making YouTube videos. And for me, when I've got my content day and I can just do that, it's great. But now I've got the best of both worlds where I can shoot my content at home because I've got a little studio at home, come into the office, shoot a podcast with someone, and then you can spend time with people that you actually want to, be around. And something that, I picked up really well from when we spoke last was just around recruiting. Yeah. And, I'm still involved in every single hiring process. I'm still involved in each interview, and it takes a lot of your time, but these are people that you're going to spend the rest of your working life with. Yeah. You got to be sure, right?
Oh, it's not an easy job, recruiting, and it's one of the first jobs that people like to delegate, founders I'm talking about. And I think it's such a big mistake to delegate that too early. I think you can get to a point where you can hire somebody that you keep and incubate for a while so they understand exactly the types of people that you're looking for. You can't just hire a HR manager and go, from now on you're looking after recruiting. They will not hire the same way that you will. And maybe they'll do it better, maybe, if you're not good at it. But if you've had, I don't think you can get 100% of hires right. I think anybody who says that you can get 100% of hires right is either lying or they haven't hired enough people to get a sample size big enough. But I think you can get it right, let's say 80% of the time. It's possible to get it maybe a little bit more than that. There's always going to be one or two people that, they present themselves well in the interview and they know how to say what you need them to say, and they've done enough of it to, know how to game it a little bit. And so you're not getting a true, genuine version of that self. You're getting, of that person's self, you're getting a concentrated version. You're getting the
highlight version.
The highlight reel version of them. And so you just can't. There's human nature. Some people will be just really good manipulators and bullshitters. And when it comes down to the crunch, you'll know. Where there's roles where you can test their competency, I love that. It's a bit hard to do that when you're hiring for a finance broking role. But in theory, why shouldn't I listen to you make a phone call? Why isn't that part of the interview process? We kind of get them. We kind of let them do a bit of role playing, or if we're comfortable enough with the person, or they've made it far enough through the interview process, let them call one of our clients. Let me hear what they say. We'll just give them very specific instructions about what they're to say and what they're not to say, and which path they need to go down, and maybe make it more like a customer service call. But let me hear how they handle the phone conversation. Why not? If it's an engineer, we expect them to do a skills assessment. We'll send them a project, and they need a small project, and they need to do it. When I first hired our first marketing resource, I made it a competition. We put up an ad for a social media and marketing manager role, and man, we were still tiny at that point in time, but I knew how important it was. I was like, this is the next hire we need. We need somebody who understands the importance of digital reach. And so I ran a competition. I was like, there's 3 parts of the competition, and then whoever, I don't know, I don't have a formal marketing background, but whoever blows me away the most, I created a scorecard, then I'll hire that person. They get the role. So it's unbiased, it's, and we hired a really good marketing manager out of that, and he did a great job for us for some time, before getting an opportunity at a publicly listed company. And I was like, man, I'm happy for you. You know what I mean? Good on ya, and, but I think hiring is super important, and you can get it wrong, and it will, same thing as property mistakes, it'll set you back. It'll set your business back. If you get the right people, it accelerates everything about your business, and it allows you to hire other people. And the only time it'll slow that pace is if you make the wrong hire, slows you down. Now all of a sudden, 100 in your office, as an example, 100 spots, seems like, man, we're never going to fill this up.
Yeah.
Because you hired 2 or 3 people that were bad for the culture or bad for business or lazy or just didn't align with what you're trying to achieve. And they've slowed down the rest of the hires that you can make, because now you're not getting ROI on those people. And in fact, you're getting negative ROI, and you're getting a downward spiral in performance from other members of your team because they're not getting along, or they're toxic, or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think it is really, really important. And for some reason, it's one of the first things that founders want to delegate. And I kind of understand why. It's hard, man. Interviewing people multiple times, filtering through candidates, telling them sorry, it's not easy. But I think it's something that people need to hang on to for as long as they possibly can.
100%.
Yeah. And so you're obviously creating so much content, you've built so much trust with this, 86,000 subscribers on YouTube. How did the book component come? Because I'm just going to hold this up. So retire, I'll hold it up for this camera, I'll hold it up for that one. But, essentially teaching people how to retire filthy rich using real estate, and in Australia, it's kind of like the blue chip way to invest, right? It's like, it's safe. Our property market's got long-standing track record of, high performance. We have a supply-demand issue as well, so it looks like it's going to be a great asset for a really long time to come. But tell us how this came about.
Well, when I started creating content on YouTube and video content, I realized that not everyone's going to watch YouTube. So there's going to be an audience I will never able to reach through the YouTube stuff. So I said, okay, at some point I'd love to write a book, and I think we're going to help more people that way. And so I started writing the book before we had any publisher deals or anything like that, and kept writing. And then we got to a point where I was sort of 60-70% done with the book. And I was like, maybe we should now reach out to the publishers, because we're going to get distribution. And that's the whole game, is we need to get to as many people so they get something that, if it's going to cost them $20 or $30, but they can pick up 2 nuggets of gold, that's going to change the direction of their lives. And I remember we got rejected from so many publishers because of the title. So it's filthy rich, like that, are you tone deaf? You're talking about real estate and being filthy rich. And they didn't want to understand why the title was there. And so we got demotivated for a little bit, got rejected from everyone. And then Wiley, who's the biggest publisher in Australia, they came out and they said, someone from our teams reached out because they've seen your content and they think you're a Wiley author. And I was like, what the hell? We got rejected from you guys. What's happening now? And now it's the boss's boss has now reached out. But
sometimes that's how these things go, right?
Yeah.
It's like the people who are offended by that, they're not your intended audience. And
Correct.
I bet you the people who rejected you probably don't own property. I would bet my house on it. In fact, I would bet my house on that. But it's some people don't understand it. But if you can there is a way, if you buy right, that it can be cash flow positive and have capital growth. And so you literally don't. If you do that enough time, you make enough of those good decisions, you now have an entire earnings. So you don't need to work, right? Your bills are paid, everything's paid. You're not working. You've got this passive income coming through. Yes, there'll be periods of unoccupancy, but in our country, we have very low rates of. Is that even the right term?
Yeah, vacancy rates.
Vacancy rates.
Yeah, we're basically at critical levels now. So less than 1% of the country's stock is available to rent. Yeah. And when you think about, I think it's over the last year, you've reduced it by 16,000 available homes, yet immigration's gone through the roof. When it comes to a rental capacity, people are just paying above and beyond.
Yeah, literally
for a rental
paying
property.
overs. Yeah, it's renting to get a lease now. My brother-in-law just went through it. You have to bid. What are you going to bid? It's it's not here's the rental amount. Do
you know there's a new career popping up? There's a new career popping up, and it's
a rental buyer's agent.
A rental agent. So they basically go on your behalf.
Fuck, here we go.
I know, right?
We're in a bubble, man. We're in a fucking bubble. Sell everything.
And so when I heard about that, I was like, that's how wild things are. And your brother you mentioned is in construction, and it's even when you look at incoming supply, approvals are so dire compared to what we are at immigration levels. you're really betting, like by not going into something, it's like inaction is actually an action.
Yeah.
And by not doing something, you're actually doing something, but it's the opposite. So you're betting against the property market by not being in it. And I know some people jump on, oh, it's just selling some property. But the reality is you're looking at data from years and years. You're looking at this logically. 99% of people that go, oh no, you're just selling some shit, it's usually coming from a place of negativity or emotion, because it's like maybe they can't get in or they've seen someone get burnt. And so you just need to take a step back, especially when building real estate. But even with the title, Filthy Rich, people sort of think, oh, it's just make as much money. But it's pretty much how I approach it, which is, for me, Filthy Rich is not just having a bunch of money, having a really good business. It's how do I have the best relationship with my parents? How do I have the best relationship with my siblings? That to me is Filthy Rich.
Oh, and your children, if you've got children.
Yep.
But it's like obviously it needs to be a little bit hooky and a little bit clickbaity. Like if you just said how to build wealth with real estate, like that seems like that is, I'm not buying that fucking book, And so there needs to be some people that understand that this is how these things sell better, because there's something called a hook, and like that's. But filthy rich to some people will mean different things. So like for me, it's not about it's about being able to work by choice. So like I never use the word retire, because like I have a goal which in the scheme of things is to retire. Like people would say retire, but I want to retire by 35. But when I say retire, I don't mean I'm going to stop working, because like I just don't have that capacity to sit still. I just don't have the capability to do that. I just mean that I can now decide on my terms who I want to work with, what I want to do, how often I want to do it, like just totally have the choice to do that. And that might be, maybe I take a year off, 2 years off, whatever, but I'll never stop working. I'll never retire, because I really actually enjoy what I do. So for me, it's not like I'm like burning myself out or whatever. And I'm like, I've had enough. I just need to get to the end. Like I don't feel that way at all. But that's really what filthy rich means. It's like just being able to have choices. Like, for some people that might be, like I've heard a mortgage broker that creates a lot of content and talks about, just being able to go to a restaurant and not look at the price of things on the menu. Like that's actually a nice position to be in. And for some people, that's more than enough.
Yep.
And, but there's other different metrics. Like how much time do you get to spend with your kids? And like for me right now, I'm probably not spending as much time as I would like. And that's because I haven't reached where I want to reach. And I really want to, get to that point so I can spend more time with my wife and kids. And, but that's the path I've chosen, So when did it go live?
So I think pre-orders started maybe in December.
Yep.
We're in now March. And yeah, I think within the first week it became a number one bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah, amazing.
And it's been out for now 3 months. It started like getting into people's hands about a month ago.
Yep.
And it's like the number one book across a few categories. So I'm hoping that more people get to read it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah.
I'm just, I'm happy that I could get something out in a different form. I'm not a good writer. There's spelling errors. There's grammar issues in there as well. I had a bunch of editors look at it, but they still missed it. And I had to shoot like an audio book as well, which took like 20 hours of recording to make a 5-hour book. But I'm just proud that like I could get something out there, and I'm sure there's people that, may not have as much time to go and watch videos or, listen to podcasts, but now they go, hey, I actually really like reading, and it might just change one person's life.
And I'll tell the difference because I have this podcast, and I've done many podcasts, including yours. The thing about podcasts is they're usually less structured, and so it's more difficult they're easier to listen to, podcasts, because they're conversational, but they're probably not as good for absorbing information, because with an audiobook, this is your, how many hours would you say you put into your career? Like we're talking about thousands of hours of knowledge built up over time that you've condensed into a 5-hour audiobook, right? So, and it's structured in a way that like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, right?
Correct.
A podcast is never like that. Like we started talking shit, and like now we're talking about our parents and our brothers and like social media and like all that kind of stuff. It's not as easy to follow along on a podcast, in terms of the structure of what to do next, and here's where you should start and here's where you should stop looking. So, but yeah, man, I'm proud of you. That's fucking awesome. I know how hard you've worked as well, and all the adversity you've had to overcome, the COVID and like all of this stuff, right? And some people made some choices around there, that cost them their business, and there's some of us that are still kicking. But if the economy turns or something happens, like we've built a resilient business because we're still here. But who knows what we could be in World War three next week or whatever. Like who knows? So all you need to do is kind of just work on building the tools to be resilient. And if you do that, and you can pivot quickly, and you haven't got your business so bloated that you haven't got the ability to sort of be lean enough to get through a difficult period, then that's fine. But there's another thing I want to talk to you about. Is like there's a few like prop techs and other things popping up now. So how much do you see as like the future is like of buyers agents is like centered around data and analytics? Like how much of that is in your business? How do you find these hidden gems for people without revealing your secret sauce? Obviously, I respect that, but there's got to be some things that you're doing or working on in your business that kind of lean into this.
Well, I think when it comes to data, because now there's so many subscriptions you can have, and we've got all of them. So we would go and aggregate everything that comes through from the guys that are specialists in that. We then have to match that up with whatever internal tools we have. And then there's that third level, which you can't find online, which is how many conversations can I have with agents, pest and build inspectors, and property managers. That is a volume game. So how I try to look at it, and I think is a reason why we've been so successful, especially with client results, is anyone can get access to the top level, which is you pay for a subscription, you'll get the same data we get, right? There is no secret source when it comes to buyers agents. Yeah, they'll have some internal stuff, but most of the stuff out there now, because it's really good, you pay for like 5 or 6 of them. If you know how to interpret that data, you're probably 90% of the way there. The problem is that there's too much data. So a lot of people fall into analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
They'll go, oh, this, but it actually doesn't hit this target. So then you've got that element, which is the first level. Then you get to the next level, which is now I want to go micro. So macro, I can understand what's happening. Micro, some of these tools can even get to the street level in terms of the data that you pick up. And then you've got to know, I've got to now find credibility in what I'm finding online, because everything you find online is usually 3 months delayed. Now, if you get into a growth cycle of a property, growth cycle, yes, you're holding the property for 10, 12, 15 years, maybe even longer. But getting in even just 3 months before the hype is there, now how fast people move with information, you've got to really go, how do I get ahead of this? So when you've got 9 buyers agents plus a whole team when it comes to account managers, and there's like 10 of those, if they're constantly talking to agents, if they're constantly talking to property managers and pest and build inspectors, we've got like live data. So when you combine all 3 of those, there was a lot of times when we got into markets a lot earlier than most people, like Perth. We were buying late 2020, early 21, which is really hard to try and convince a client to pick up a property that's just basically gone down and it's a mining town apparently. But you can pick up so much when you're at that level. And this is what I'm saying is, when I was doing it myself, how many times can I pick up the phone and talk to an agent? Now you're like, okay, I not only have to do that myself, but I also have to compete with all these other people that are doing it, which is why I think we get so much further ahead with speed, where our average time to source a deal is probably the lowest at the volume we do across all of our competitors, where the average time for everyone else is sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So you sign the deal, you come on board, I'll find you a property in 6 to 8 weeks. That's what everyone else is doing. We're at 2 to 3 weeks. So you're getting into markets earlier, which means the prices haven't really calculated and what the update is because the data's all lagging, plus everyone else is buying after you. You're probably in a position where you see some outrageous numbers, where some clients are making more from purchasing the right property a year ago from their passive investment than their active income. And you're like, I did that tax-free. So timing is very important. And I think when you're a specialist in that stuff, like I don't know anything much about stocks, right? So if I decided I want to go buy stocks, I'm going to go, well, I don't know when the timing's right. I'll just DCA in and just continue buying. But when you know property, and I do it all the time, you can see the difference even $10,000 will make in the longer run. And so, when it comes to our process, it's not just, hey, the data is going to be there, and there's prop tech companies, as you mentioned, there's so many out there that are like, hey, I can scrape this data, I can scrape this. you still got to have a conversation with a real person at the end of the day, because you can look at this stuff online, but you still need to pick up the phone to the agent. Who's going to do that? And if your negotiating skills are worse than mine, they're going to sell it to me.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you can get a lot of that stuff replaced. And we've got a lot of AI stuff happening in-house as well, and developing stuff as well around that. But there's an element there you just can't replace, at least with the work that we do.
There's also relationships too, right? Like, it's like, hey man, like how many transactions have we done together or whatever? You know, I always come through, you know, if I tell you a client's ready, then I know for a fact they're ready. And like, you get a bit of an idea that, relationships are important. There's no question about that. That I think that's a key part. That I think technology, it's very hard to replace the human connection of, like, you know, maybe you went and maybe you did something very nice for them. You took their team a box of donuts, or, you know, bought them a bottle of something to say thank you because, you know, you negotiated for your client $5,000 cheaper, and they, you know, whatever it is, it's like a small gesture, but you showed them that you appreciated it. And they did it, and they pushed their client on their side to make sure that they can do many more deals with you in the future. And so relationships are not going anywhere, you know, not for the foreseeable future. But before we wrap up, there's a tradition that we have on here where I ask the founders to pitch their business and why people should work with you, and do it in less than 60 seconds. So
cool.
So I'll give you a few seconds to sort of maybe contemplate that a little bit, and then we'll kick off. So whenever you're ready, let's go. So
we jump in, I suppose.
Yeah, well, tell me, like, why should somebody you know, work with you guys at Search Property?
I think if you're looking for a team that goes beyond just finding a property, which is what a buyer's agent actually does, then you're wanting to go with someone like Search Property, who are not just involved in the process of pre-purchase, which is strategy, roadmap, goal setting, to then walk you through that process at a speed that no one else can deliver, to then get to a point where even the post-sale, post-settlement, you still got the support, and you've almost got now a sounding board, right? A sounding board where if you have ideas or changes in your life, you can always come back to us, and there's no cost associated with that. So the strategy check-ins, the portfolio updates, that is the gold that most people miss. Because if you're trying to get from 1 property to 10, you can't do that alone. You got to do it with people who deal with specialists, who deal with high net worth people, and you deal with people who've learnt tricks of the trade to say, okay, in order for me to scale to this point, this is how I do it, and you're going to need a team to do it. So as a buyer's agent, yes, you can go and find someone, charge you like $15K or whatever. You pay a little extra, and you're getting all of that service plus a dedicated account manager, means that you're not feeling alone throughout the process.
Amazing, mate. Thank you so much. It's so good to see the progress of your business since we last caught up, following along. It's amazing to see, mate. Congratulations on all your success, and to you and your brother as well.
Thanks for having me on board, bro.
No worries.